Well, welcome to another session of the Inviting Inner Wisdom Summit. And today we have Laurie Riedman on with us. And she is going to talk about how our belief systems really impact us, especially in relationship. And it's such a wonderful topic, and how we can see our inner wisdom kind of at play or maybe not at play when we're in relationship. And so Laurie she runs couples weekends for further development and relationship building. And she also is a marketing pro. So she's kind of left and right brained. We love that about her. So welcome, Laurie. Thank you for being on our summit.
Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I've listened to a few, and hopefully by the time this airs, I will have listened to more. And I'm excited to be sharing some wisdom around this topic of beliefs. It's something that I'm familiar with and passionate about.
Yeah. So tell us how it really impacts us. You know, how do these beliefs really impact us? And what are these beliefs? What are we talking about when we talk about beliefs?
Yeah, well, belief systems are something, I kind of think of it as the operating system that kind of operates kind of like your Mac operating system or Windows. It's kind of always there, and we aren't always aware of what program, so to speak, is running, what belief is running. Of course, there's many different kinds of beliefs. There's empowering beliefs, like I can do anything, or, you know, I deserve love. Those are all the ones that everyone really wants to plug into a little bit more. But what today's session I thought we'd talk about are what we might call those limiting or those hidden beliefs. Those are beliefs or the operating system that's kind of might be running our life, and we may not really want it to. So they might be beliefs that are limiting access to all of who we really are, our authentic selves. And the place that I believe most of the time these beliefs get in the way is in relationship. And you can think of that in relationship with ourselves, right? To have a really true, authentic relationship, letting ourselves really shine and be all of who we are in many different aspects of our lives. Or our relationships with our partner, our family, our friends, our coworkers. Sometimes these limited beliefs, which really another way of thinking of them are their thoughts. They're very powerful thoughts. Yeah. But sometimes it's like a story we tell ourselves that limits us in relationship. Either we are already telling ourselves something someone else is thinking about us that may or may not be true. And so our behavior will actually reflect that. And you can be in relationship with someone and not even know that these things are limiting you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could be in a relationship with yourself and not know that these things are really limiting you. I mean, it's amazing. And these beliefs, I mean, they come from many different places, but I believe that what makes them so strong is that we have looked to reinforce them our entire lives. So we're looking around and like, oh, that person said that thing. Remember, that goes back to that story that I'm not enough, or that person did this. And I'm sure that by that action, they meant that I'm not enough, or, you know, whatever that core wound is that comes down.
Yeah. And oftentimes it is things that we're not really aware of, and they're messages that we've internalized. And I like to think of it as like we have these little glasses on that are shaded by this belief. And so no matter what happens or who comes in our purview or in our relationships or in our life, we see our experience through these goggles, so to speak, that have a particular spin on it. And sometimes those goggles are necessary, right? We get these beliefs sometimes because it's a defense mechanism. You know, you're going to hurt me. Maybe you got that belief for a really good reason, because at the time that belief was encoded in your psyche, you really did need to protect yourself. But as you get older, you see the rim of your life through that belief system of I'm going to get hurt. And so you may not be a risk taker when you could be. You may kind of stop relationships at a certain level so you can't be vulnerable or be truly intimate because you're afraid of getting hurt. Or often is the case, which we find in the couples weekends you mentioned that my husband and I have been running for years. Often what happens is you push someone else away before they're going to hurt you. So that's just one example of how that can kind of imprison us in a way, these beliefs. And so I like to tell this story of the Golden Buddha, which maybe you have heard, but I like to use it as an example of explaining to people what we're really trying to get at. And maybe some of you have heard this story, and I'm probably not going to tell it with all the detail, but basically in Bangkok, there's actually a temple called the Golden Buddha Temple, and you can actually go someday. It's on my bucket list to go there, and I'd like to visit it. But at the time, hundreds of years ago, this Golden Buddha existed. And what happened I think it was 1957, there was a huge clay Buddha that had been there for hundreds of years, and they were putting in a highway. And all the monks in the temple very carefully put it on this cart and were lifting it up to try and move it so that they could put the highway in. They were trying to move this clay Buddha. And they started to move it, and it started to rain, and it started to crack. So they were nervous. They put it down. They covered it up with a tarp. They went back to the monastery at night to try and figure out what to do the next morning. Well, one particular Buddhist monk was very concerned, and in the middle of the night, he went out with his little flashlight to check on the Buddha, and he put his flashlight on inside the tarp, and he saw little bits of gold coming out. So it was through the cracks. So he went and got some tools, and he started to chisel away at the clay, which was very thick and had been there for hundreds of years. And by the time the sun shone in the morning and all the other monks came around, they started to help him. They had uncovered a pure gold Buddha. None of them had known that there was gold underneath this clay Buddha. It had been there since the Burmese army hundreds of years ago had come into the town. The monks there at the time were afraid of this beautiful golden Buddha being stolen, so they covered it with clay to try and protect it. And over time, the monks who knew that this had happened had died, and the secret died with them. And apparently for hundreds of years, no one knew that this was a pure gold Buddha. And they ended up discovering, I think it was a 2.5-ton golden Buddha that was worth over $200 million in 1957.
Wow.
I use this story because I believe that each of us has a golden Buddha in us. When we're born, when we're children and infants, you just have to see children play, right? I mean, their true essence shines through their eyes. They giggle and laugh. They're fully authentic. They sometimes tell it exactly the way they see it because they don't have these constructs, right, to cover up this truth, this authenticity.
Absolutely.
And I believe as we go through life, as we grow, we put a little bit of clay, a little at a time, on our own golden Buddhas. Some of that, like I mentioned earlier, is because we need to defend ourselves. We need to protect ourselves. But unfortunately, it limits us accessing that authentic self, that truly golden child, that golden Buddha inside of us. So belief systems and trying to do the hard work, and it is hard work to reprogram those, so to speak, are the essence of the clay that we put on top. And so I believe it takes dedicated work and some serious ability to look inside oneself and to get the support that you need to really unearth that clay on our own golden Buddha a little at a time. So part of what I hope to address in this session is a couple of little tricks, some tools for how to, excavate a little bit of that clay.
Yeah, that's perfect. And there's so many of us that have qualities like that. I know for me, when I was young, I didn't know how to protect myself, and I was in some pretty dangerous situations growing up. And so I became the warrior, bitch, and that's how I really kept myself safe. And I would cut people at the knees before they could come near me, or get close to me. And that really served me when I was a kid because I didn't have a whole lot of tools. I didn't have a whole lot of know-how of how to really manage these situations. And being a kid, you just don't have those skills. But as I got older, I realized that piece certainly wasn't going to serve me in long-term relationships. And it certainly wasn't even going to serve me in everyday life, is to, keep a wall around me. Because then I really wanted connection, but it's hard to connect through a wall. So yeah, I can see how beliefs can, and so they started limiting, what I was willing to do, who I would connect with. And that, I found new skills, and that's what I did with Woman Within, is I really dove deep on how can I manage to keep myself safe and yet be able to be open and vulnerable at the same time. And it can be a lot of work, unpacking all of those beliefs, because every time I unpack one, it's like, it's like the whack-a-mole, the bop-a-mole. It's like, oh, popped it there.
Oh, there's another one. Another one, exactly. Yeah. And I like to think of these beliefs as they really imprison us, right?
Yeah.
And they keep our world small. And they play a huge role in how we view the world too. And I believe, and maybe many of you listening and watching this, believe in the law of attraction. So what you put out will come back to you 2-3-fold. So if you put out some negative beliefs, unfortunately, you may be attracting to yourself the exact people in relationship and situations that are going to reinforce that belief rather than help you change it. And so that's one of the things that we do on the couples weekend, is we spend a lot of time creating a really safe container, providing tools for couples, because we believe that there's one of the great places to do this kind of deep work. Yes, you need to do it yourself. You can't expect your partner to do it for you. And we address that, because a lot of people think, if we go to this weekend and you get fixed, then everything will be great. So it's really not about that, but it's about using the relationship as a safe container to hold up that mirror and to look at yourself and to recognize these beliefs that you maybe have that are limiting, and to ask for the support that you need. Be vulnerable, to break down those walls, get rid of that clay, so to speak, and so that we can be ourselves authentically, truly, in the magnificence that we really are.
Yeah, absolutely. And my husband and I had gone through a couples weekend, not yours, although we're looking forward to that someday.
Yeah, I'd love to have you.
But we went through one, and when we went to do the work part, there was nothing to work on with both of us. Like, we each had our own work, and that's really, what you're talking about is how we each brought our own, perspective or our glasses to the relationship. So we had to. It's more of a, not that I'm trying to change his glasses, but I sometimes, ask if I can look through them, and that's how we stay safe, is like, we try to understand the other's perspective and not try to change them. And I love that, because there are women who, even on the Women Within weekends, they come and they're like, well, I really want to work on my relationship, but he's not here, so we can't do it. And it's like, oh no, we definitely can.
And the other thing that's neat about doing this kind of work in relationship, including this kind of belief work, among other things, is for some women, it's really hard to be vulnerable. Men too. And there are ways that we can allow ourselves the safety to go on what John Wellwood calls the razor's edge, so that you can go on that edge. It's that uncomfortable place. But what better person to support you in that place than to ask your partner for what they need, what you need. And oftentimes what you need from them may be the one thing that's really hard for them to give. So in that way, they're doing their work too. It's magical how that happens. Yeah. So anyway, to get back to the beliefs, I do have a little meditation that I could take all of you through if you're willing to do this. And basically it's just a small example of how we can chip away a little at these beliefs and reframe them. Because it's really about reframing them for ourselves. So some people do a lot of affirmation work, where they might take a negative belief and turn it into a positive affirmation. That's certainly a great way of doing it. This uses a model of questioning and kind of asking yourself, is it really true? There's a series of 5 questions, which I'll go through in the meditation, but I'll use in the end. And these are all available as a freebie that I'll make these available. I'll make basically a little exercise available that has a list of commonly held beliefs, both for relationship and in your life. There's different categories. And you can print that out and check mark it and see which ones really feel right for you, and then start to do the work around them. Because the first thing is really identifying them, right?
Yes.
Recognizing that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll give you a little 5-question process that you could use anytime.
Mm.
So I thought I'd take everyone through a little meditation, and it won't take long. So hopefully all of you can get in a really nice, comfortable place.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're sitting in a chair, put your feet down, kind of relax, connect yourself to the ground, take a nice deep breath or two. Close your eyes, of course. And that way, if you close your eyes, you won't see that I'm going to read this, so I do it right. So let's take a deep breath in and out. And we'll set an intention that for the next few minutes, we can safely explore and experiment how your beliefs may be limiting your relationships. Another breath in and out. And we'll make a commitment to ourselves that we won't judge ourselves in this process. And that this is a process. And each time we do this, we'll chip away at the clay covering our golden child, our true essence. This is part of our intention. So we'll take another deep breath in and out. And bring to mind a situation, perhaps in a relationship currently or in the past, where you felt stuck. Perhaps where you felt or feel restricted. Perhaps a time you were caught in an emotion. It could have been fear, anger, sadness, or hurt. See the situation as if you're viewing it on a big screen in front of you. Get in touch with what emotions are being stirred up. As you see yourself on the screen, are you afraid? Are you angry? Are you feeling sad? Perhaps you're hurt or feeling rejected. Press the pause button on the scene before you and ask yourself, what are you believing when you're in the thick of this scene? When you're in the middle of this emotion? Is there a story you tell yourself about the situation? What are you believing about yourself? Or what are you believing about others? Now, there may be many messages or beliefs coming up, and that's okay. It could be that you're never going to be happy, or this will never change, or others won't love me, or I can't trust others. It could be you'll never get close to anyone, or what's the use of doing this? You want to connect with what you're believing. What are you believing about yourself and others? So pick one of those beliefs. It doesn't have to be the most important. Just pick one to explore further. So you want to take a breath. Is this belief true? Certainly it may feel real, but is it truth? Is it reality? Do you know if it's true? Notice what comes up. You may be saying, yes, I know this is true, but you really don't know, do you? That's okay. So ask yourself, what is it like to live in this belief? Thinking that it's true, living as if it is true. When it's strong and it's driving the bus of your life, what is it like to live believing this about yourself? This belief, this story. What is it like to have this belief, this thick piece of clay, covering up your true essence? Can you feel the limitation? So now it's time to get in touch with the part of you that needs to believe this story, that needs to believe this truth. And if it helps you, you can find a place in your body where you maybe feel this belief. You may sense a tightness or a contraction somewhere in your body, or perhaps you get smaller when you are in touch with this part of you. So if you'd like to, and you haven't already, place your hand on your heart or wherever this part of you is located at the moment, wherever it is in your body. It's the part that might be afraid or hurting, the part of you that is believing this. And connect with it and just ask yourself, what does this part of me need? Perhaps it simply needs to know that you are here, keeping it company. Does it need acceptance? Forgiveness? Perhaps it's a message of love. Maybe it needs to be held and feel safe. Offer this part of you whatever it needs. Are there words you can mentally whisper that might be healing for this part of you? You can experiment with this because there's no right or wrong way of doing this. Just breathe and feel this vulnerable place and imagine it held in love. Drape it in a golden light of your true essence. Breathe that in, that golden Buddha, that golden child. Ask yourself, what might life be like if I didn't believe this? Open yourself to a glimmer, a crack in your clay. What might your life be like if you didn't believe this? Who could you be? Who would you be if you didn't believe this? How might your relationships change? Take a moment and rest in this place of knowing that you are bigger than this belief. Be open to the tenderness, the kindness of your golden light. And let your golden light shine on this part of you. As you take a few more cleansing breaths, basking in the golden light around you, listen to these words of the poet Donna Falls. Take a breath in and out, covered in golden light. Awakening now. Why wait for your awakening? Would you hold back when the beloved beckons? No, I can't step across the threshold, you say, eyes downcast. I'm not worthy. I'm afraid and my motives aren't pure. Do you value your reasons for staying small more than the light shining through the open door? Forgive yourself. Now is the only time you have to be whole. Now is the sole moment that exists to live in the radiance of your true self. Perfection is not a prerequisite for anything but pain. Please, oh please, don't continue to believe in the stories of separation and failure. This is the day of your awakening. Take a breath or two. Begin to wiggle your toes, feel yourself in the chair. Hear my voice and know that I'm coming at you through a computer screen, and begin to kind of come back to the room you're in. And slowly, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes and rejoin us back. Take a nice breath. So hopefully that gave you just a little peek inside of how many of these belief systems kind of are our operating systems, and how it's really being gentle with ourselves, we can reframe them. And some of the questions that we went through in that meditation, I actually will have as like a little handout that people can get, which I call them the 5 questions of mindfully opening to our true nature. And so the 5 questions are: you first, in the midst of being faced with a belief or a situation where you believe there's a story around it that you're making up, you would ask, what am I really believing right now? And sometimes people can journal this. You can put these in your journal and journal them. I find writing helpful for me. You can ask, is this true? Do I really know if this is true? Am I assuming this is true? Is this real but not true? Or does this maybe feel like it's true, but perhaps it isn't? Because there's this funny thing that happens in our brain about what truth is. We kind of can have our own truths, which don't necessarily mean they're not true, but sometimes we need to step out in perspective to really double test that, to see, come on, is that really true? Is it really true that I don't deserve love? Is that really, really true? I may feel it's true, and beliefs really do feel real to us. For sure they do. But the idea is to question the truth in it. Is it really true? And I don't know, Christina, if your audio's on. And then...
Thank you. Sorry
okay, that's okay.
that. I did turn it off so that in case I ruffled any, I didn't make any noise during the...
Yeah, no problem. So then the third question or set of questions of these 5 is, what is it like to be living inside this belief? So we can kind of see the restriction of it, right? Where is it in my body? Sometimes that helps us to identify where it is. I know that sometimes by doing that, sometimes it feels weird, like, oh, it's not anywhere in my body. But by looking at where I feel constricted, or I might feel smaller, or that might help. And then, how do I feel? How is this affecting my life by believing this? To look at cause and effect. And what happens in my life when I believe this? Am I limiting my experience? Am I pushing people away? The 4th piece is really getting close to what you really need. Because the reason we have these beliefs, there's something it needs. Mm-hmm. There's something that part of us needs. It's either, I kind of call it, sometimes we have these situations that are incomplete. They haven't been fully felt. They haven't been fully accepted. They haven't been fully released. And this there's kind of like this process that has been interrupted and not fully completed. And so we need to really look at that vulnerable place inside of us and ask, what is this vulnerable place in me that's feeling this really need? And to be with that, to give it a voice and a feeling and to understand it. That's part of the completion part. Mm. And the fifth piece is, what would my life be like if I didn't believe this? To open ourselves up to a new reality, a new possibility. How might my relationships change? And visualize the same situation or the crisis that you originally might have triggered this belief, or you originally got into that emotion around, and visualize that same situation and how might it have gone differently if that belief were different. Mm. And I think by taking myself, I've done this, through this process of the different beliefs that I'm finding are triggering myself, it begins to chip away at the clay. And it's something we can do ourselves. We could do it in a group of women. We can do it with our partner. We can do it with a friend. It really, it's a practice. Mm. And I can certainly tell you that, I'm certainly not free of some of those negative beliefs. It's a never ending, tapping into that inner wisdom, like probably many of the speakers this week or these weeks have really shown, is an ongoing process, right? It's like a practice, kind of like a meditation practice or a yoga practice. You're going to have to do it a little bit every day or as many times as you can in order to get better at it. Yeah. And I'm certainly not a neuroscientist, and forgive me if anyone's listening that is. You can tell me in the comments maybe the proper names for these things, but I do know that there's a saying that the neurons that fire together wire together. Mm. So the more often that we can do this process, we may retrain some pathways in our brain and rewire a belief system. So instead of going down the super highway of I don't deserve love all the time, you start to get these I envision them as little exit ramps. Mm. So we don't have to go down all the way down that highway. We may take the exit where we begin to start to go down. It could be a little rough road in the beginning and not quite a highway, but we begin to understand that maybe that isn't truly true and that we do deserve love, or whatever that belief is. So this 5-question process, I should tell you, is based on Katie Byron's, what does she have? 3 questions, I think it is. And so I learned it at a Buddhist meditation retreat, and they expanded it out, and it really works for me. So that's one of the things that I wanted to share with all of you is hopefully this may help you as well.
Yeah, I really love this piece because I know that, as doing work in Women Within and all the weekends and the workshops and everything, I've done a lot of work on my beliefs, and it was really hard the hardest thing for me was to identify them, and to be able to see what is a belief versus data. And, in Women Within and in Mankind Project, they use something called the clearing, which right. helped me too, because it separates the data from all the other stories that I'm telling myself about that data. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be like, well, you came in and slammed the door. Really? That's a judgment. Like, the door was shut.
Right. Yeah, or I'm constantly, I have 3 girls. They're all older, but when they're in their teenage years, I could say good morning and they'd say I was yelling at them. And so, and I did learn later in reading a really great book, which is really off topic, but it's called The Female Brain by Laurie Brizadine, I think her name is. She's a neuroscientist. It really helped me understand myself and my girls. But when you're a teenager and their brain is being rewired, they actually can't tell like emotion when someone is talking to them as quickly because their brain's being rewired. So that's why they often think people are yelling at them when they're not yelling at them. Mm. So it's the same kind of thing. We may have a belief that's already running in our operating system, and someone just says one thing, and they certainly didn't intend it to sound like they were shaming or yelling or anything, but our brain interprets it as, oh my God, I've done something wrong. Sure. And you suddenly automatically go to this place. So
yeah. And so these questions really help because they get not only, like I could see there was times in my previous marriage especially, but probably even times in this relationship where I get really mad and I want to believe it's something that that person has
Mm-hmm.
done. You know what I mean? Like if they just wouldn't do that, I wouldn't have to get mad, and in the second relationship, I've been a lot more empowered and a lot more just aware of my own belief systems. And so I realized that, that is the most disempowering thing, first of all, is saying that, my state depends on somebody else and what they do.
You made me feel.
Yeah, it's giving up power, and they don't have, and that's what my husband used to tell me all the time before we got married. He's like, I'm not making you anything. And I was like, look, I'm going to go this women's weekend. I'm going to tell you how you are making me mad, because if you say that, I have no choice but to get mad.
Right.
And so, yeah, he was right. He can't make me mad. I choose to be mad. And it doesn't always feel like a choice. However, that these questions really dive underneath that, right? Because when I get mad at my husband, it's because so for example, I think the only thing that we really argue about is sometimes he's just out of the house a lot. Like he just isn't home and he's giving away a lot of his time to MKP and here and there and everywhere. And he's never home. And so that used to make me really angry until I started asking myself these types of questions. And I was like, wow, this isn't even about him. This is about me being afraid of being abandoned or being afraid that I'm going to be disconnected with or left behind, and that he doesn't care about me or I'm not lovable, all of those stories. And I mean, they're familiar stories that they're wired together really good.
Yeah.
I had to come to a point where I was like, I talked to him about it, rather than getting into that passive aggressive state, because that's where I would used to go with it, like, oh, I'll just be passive aggressive and I'll be mean to him and then he'll do whatever I want. And that's not really what I wanted. What I wanted was him to understand that I was really sad and that I had fear, and so I could see going through these questions how I would be able to name that. And then be able to recognize it when it comes up in my body, when he's telling me, okay, so Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, I'm not going to be home. And I get that feeling again. I can identify that feeling automatically. And I'm like, no, Christina, this is just that story that you're telling yourself that he's not going to be here because you're not lovable.
Right.
And I mean, it's I loved all those questions. It really flowed right through that. And then bringing it back to, well, what do I really want? What I want is, I can either talk to him and say, I need some time at home. I want some attention.
Ask for what you need.
Yeah. Or I could just tell my little inner girl, like, you are lovable. What can I do to make you feel lovable? What is it that I can do right now for you to feel loved? Like maybe we need to get that connection somewhere else with somebody who's more available.
Yeah. And one thing I'll just, we mentioned the couples weekend. I want to give credit where credit is due. I think Shar is actually part of this, wisdom session, but Shar Tosi and Rich Tosi, he is one of the founders of MKP, and Shar is one of the founders of Woman Within, or the founder of Woman Within, and they created this couples weekend. And so my husband Rich and I are one of 3 couples in the world actually right now, that are blessed and have done some training to facilitate their weekend. And so that's the weekend we do. You don't have to have done MKP or Woman Within. If you've done this kind of work, you're certainly welcome to join us. But it's a really great weekend. Now, this particular process, the question process, isn't part of our weekend. It's actually something that I do in doing some coaching and working with couples. My husband and I do couples coaching, and I work with individuals both for professional and personal coaching. And it's just really, to be honest with you, something I use that works for me. So I thought I'd share it. But so the weekend, there will be information on my page if you want information about the weekend, and I'll be putting down a couple of these the worksheet on beliefs, so you can look at those, and also this 5-question piece. I'm happy to share that. And if anyone has any questions about anything, I'd be happy to answer them via email. My email will be down there. Just give me a buzz. And good luck with that excavation, because it's not easy work, and it is a pathway to our inner wisdom. Our golden self is all. It knows everything. It has all the wisdom that we need, and we just need to open up some little cracks occasionally in that clay that we've put on ourselves or life has put in our way, so that we can truly tap into that. And I hope that in the few minutes we've been together that people have gotten a little something out and had a glimpse of that goldenness that's inside all of us.
Well, I think it's fantastic. And if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to put them right in the comments below. In the first 24 hours of this airing, Laurie will be giving out a prize, so we're excited about that. So put in some comments. Let us know how that worked for you, and what your experience was. If you feel like sharing, we'd love to hear what your experience is. I think that those were fantastic. I had never heard them before, and it really dove right through the process that it took me forever to do. And I wish I had these questions 10 years ago now.
It's great. Again, thanks for having me. And I look forward to listening to all the other wisdom that you're gathering together. And thank you, Christina, for doing this, because I know it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work, and I really appreciate it. I'm sure a lot of people are going to enjoy this.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Laurie. And thank you for being here. And all of Laurie's information is below, so feel free to click on any of those links.
Let's connect.
She will get right back to you. Well, thanks, guys. We'll see you in the session.
Okay.